Think of Oxford and it's the history and academic achievement that comes to mind. But this 4-month-long trial has exposed a different, deeply disturbing world just a few miles from the city centre. Here on the Cowley Road, vulnerable girls as young as 11 were preyed on by men. They were raped, exploited, even sold.
Okay. But specifically to the incident that we...
At the heart of the gang were 2 sets of brothers.
She said that that's you. Why would she say that?
That wasn't me.
In police interviews, Anjum Dogar insisted it was mistaken identity. But his brother Akhtar, like most of the men, refused to say anything.
How do you get around?
No comment.
Ever been in this room?
Bassam Karar and his brother Mohammed were accused of being particularly violent in this already brutal business of abusing children.
Were you involved in any sexual activities with anyone with any girl knowing they were under 13 years of age or 13 years of age?
No comment.
But this young woman, known in court as Girl 3, was one of their victims. She was plied with drink and drugs, then forced to have sex with them and strangers they brought in. Just 12 when first approached, she describes herself as a child with makeup on.
They knew everything that they had to say to get a vulnerable person, a young person, on their side. It's sick what they did. Now I know what they did, I can see it. But at the time you have no idea what is happening to you.
The gang often brought the girls to this hotel in the city. The court heard how men would arrive to abuse them by appointment. Some customers travelled from places like Bradford and Leeds. Girls were also trafficked to Coventry, Manchester and London, either to be shown off or to have sex with men.
Police emergency.
I could hear a woman getting slapped about next door to my room.
This was 2006 when a guest in another room became so worried by what was happening next door, he called the police.
It sounded like the guy had a prostitute in his room and started turning a bit sour on her.
It wasn't a prostitute, it was Girl 3. She was 14 and was being raped and beaten in this room by Bassam Karar. There was a police investigation, but she was persuaded by another girl to drop the complaint. She says you couldn't say no to these men.
They were physically threatening and verbally very aggressive, and they were scary.
Her mother was desperate. Despite numerous letters and 30 case conferences, social workers, schools and police offered little help. She tried everything to keep her daughter at home.
She'd get a phone call and she'd turn into kind of like an automaton. I used to try and restrain her to start with, but that only ended up in, one or other of us getting hurt. And I was advised not to do that. And I used to then try and follow her out of the front door, and I would usually just see her getting into a car and being driven away.
This is one of the places where the girls described being approached as they were hanging around with friends. To start, the men were extremely friendly, offering them cigarettes and drink, making them feel special. But that was the grooming that came before the exploitation. The at times sadistic abuse of these girls went on for years. Most of the victims spent time in local authority care, and Oxfordshire County Council accepts it failed to protect them.
This is a horrendous thing that's happened. We're really sorry that it took so long. We have learnt a huge amount over this period of years in terms of how to deal with things. Going back, social workers were doing their utmost to try and protect children. I don't think we realised quite what we're up against then. We've learnt a lot with the police subsequently.
This case has also raised questions for the local community. Most of the men were of Pakistani origin, and the court was told the majority of customers were Asian. The victims were all white girls. For Dr. Hojat Ramzi, a leading member of Oxford's Muslim community, everyone needs to learn from the case.
There is an issue and we cannot put it under the carpet. Enough is enough. And it is our responsibility, the community of the Muslim and the non-Muslims, they should get together to rectify these sort of evil things out of our society.
It took some of the victims a long time to speak out about the abuse they faced. Many of them now hope that today's convictions will encourage other girls to come forward if they're being exploited. Alison Holt, BBC News, Oxford.